Thanks very much, Justin. Andre?
Okay. Thank you to Josh and David for inviting me to present, and thank you all of you for your time. This is a very important forum. The fight here needs your leadership, and there have been a number of forums moving forward over the years. I've been involved in quite a few of them with Rabbi Cooper and others who are here as experts. And the world has changed since then. The internet has changed since then. We've seen that the actual culture we're dealing with, the position of the platforms, and most importantly, the position of the public and the attitudes of what we'll accept are different now to what they were then. And this creates both new threats and new opportunities for us. In 2008, at the Global Forum to Combat Anti-Semitism, I first raised the concern about anti-Semitism in social media, okay, what I called anti-Semitism 2.0. And the danger even then was already highlighted as the normalization of the hate, both in the online communities and then reflecting back into society. What we've seen is that this online hate has become a pipeline into radicalization. We've seen how neo-Nazis on their forums, I'll mention Stormfront in particular, not only promoted hate themselves, but then infiltrated other forums. It was Stormfront that infiltrated 8chan and 4chan, particularly Poll, that led to the terrorist attacks that Justin just spoke about. There was a deliberate effort of radicalization. There was a change in culture that was pushed from the outside by neo-Nazis. The attacks, again, I won't repeat them, Justin mentioned them, but the most recent one in that series, which was the attack in Halle in Germany, was covered in a report that the Online Hate Prevention Institute put out just before Christmas. A tip for all the other experts: don't release a major report the day before Christmas. Nobody sees it. But that report is out there and has a large number of recommendations, in particular for members of parliament. So I commend the report to you. Please do have a look through it. It also has recommendations for the major platforms, and a number of them engaged with us as we put it together. One of the gateways that we've seen to this hate has been Holocaust denial. And I want to flag that in particular. It's already been mentioned by others about Facebook's change, but people may not be aware. Just in the last 24 hours, there's been a letter to Jack Dorsey put out by the American Jewish Congress, another organization I've been assisting, highlighting the flaws in Twitter's policies, highlighting actual examples of content that are falling between the gaps, highlighting how the policies Twitter have are actually allowing radicalization networks to continue sharing content in private there. The hate groups are moving from mainstream platforms to smaller platforms. They're moving to fringe platforms while at the same time continuing to use the major platforms through coded messages, through links, through other resources that drag people into this pipeline to extremism. The AI is not going to pick up these things because of the way they are coded and hidden. It takes the work of experts. It takes the connection between our experts and our members of parliament, our members of Knesset, our members of Congress, in order to make sure that we don't monitor things and say, okay, if we get 90% of it, 99% of it, we're doing enough. That 1% is a large volume of content, and that 1%, if it radicalizes one person and leads to an attack, that's what we need to avoid. We need to have greater coordination. As a member of IRA, part of the Australian delegation there, I echo the calls that have been made to adopt the definition, not just the definition on anti-Semitism. IRA also has a working definition on Holocaust denial and distortion. We need both those definitions to be adopted and used by the social media platforms. Our time is up for Australia, so I yield. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And on behalf of the Australian members of their parliament who had to go vote, they appreciate all of the organization's participation very much.
That's actually Andrew's question. That's Andrew Pearce's
Thank you.
question.
Thanks, Alex. I think it was mine. Yes, on the issue of I think it was Holly and Jamie who both mentioned the issue of codes of practice. And obviously this is the debate we're having here at the moment. with regards to the codes of practice that will go in the online harms bill, where the government is presently proposing statutory codes of practice, which Ofcom will be the regulator, will enforce for terrorism and child exploitation, but not for hate speech. And this is probably going to be a point of contention when the bill becomes before the House. But on this specific issue of penalties, it's all very well when we have Facebook and other social media platforms who are perhaps they've been irresponsible, but at the more responsible end of reasonableness, who are at least trying to do some catch up at the moment. But when it comes to penalties specifically, we have seen obviously over in Europe. I don't know why I'm pointing that way. That's not Europe. That's the London Borough of Southwark. But over in Europe, they have tried penalties with regards to the German model of fine. But these fines obviously mean nothing to a platform as big as Facebook. So one thing I was interested to get a view on is whether anybody has considered this issue of individual senior management liability and criminal liability, and whether any of the presenters have a view on that, because this will be a live area of debate when we come to discuss the online harms bill.
May I jump in?
Does anybody? Absolutely, Andre.
Yep, thank you. Firstly, that was exactly what initially caused the shift at Facebook. Okay, it was Germany's moves to hold senior Facebook management in Germany accountable, and it was put out in the press that they were going to be held personally liable under criminal charges if there wasn't progress. So directly on the question, yes, that definitely works. It does require that the companies also have staff locally on the ground in each country, because there's nothing you can do if the company's assets and the company's staff are all out of your jurisdiction, which is also important in terms of actually having localization. The way anti-Semitism and other forms of hate manifest does differ country to country. And unless you have local people you can engage with, you can't tackle that. If I can just answer the question on censorship that was brought up before, I think both a technical response and a non-First Amendment US response, I think, is needed. Elsewhere in the world, we do have laws that do restrict hate speech, and those laws tend to work very well where we have them. I don't think that should be taken off the table. But when it comes to social media platforms, they're not just publishing the content, they're also giving it a megaphone. One of the things that I recommended some years ago to YouTube was, if you're not going to take some of this content down, at least remove the ability to show how popular it is, remove the ability to share it, remove the ability for it to be recommended, even if it's still on the platform. Take away the tools that social media provides technically that are causing that hate to spread. The other thing is that when the content is shared within these different social media platforms, it doesn't go to everybody. The platforms are deciding who sees it. That's different to what the US Supreme Court originally described as the basic freedom of the internet. The Supreme Court said that the content doesn't come to you unless you're looking for it. That's just not true anymore. So the platforms themselves are deciding who sees the content, how many people see it, and how far it spreads, which means there is censorship going on regardless, and it's censorship which can be overcome by giving them money. I think that's a very different model. We've got to separate social media from the internet as a whole. As long as the content can go somewhere on the internet, it's not being censored. Censorship is what governments do. Platforms saying that they won't host something is a different story, and I think is perfectly reasonable and even within the First Amendment. Thank you.